Okay, and now we're going to have Chandra ask me a question that she wants to know about me. So we're going to open up a little more dialogue here. And what would you like to say?
Well, what I'd like to say, very intense question. No, just in the art world, this is kind of, very art related. So you and I deal with a lot of replication of our products because, well, and I'm not saying your stuff is easy to make, but it's easily replicated, right? So how do you deal with all of the offenders? And I know there's different levels of offending. So like I guess the most mildest case to the worst case. How do you deal with that?
Okay. So, like you said, that is very multidimensional. That is something that I've dealt with. That's something that you've dealt with because I work in wood primarily as my medium. My expression and all that is based in carpentry and woodwork. Yours is based in sculptures mostly, and jewelry, things like that. When you feel so inspired to do those things. So I think I got to make the distinction first off between being inspired by something and being ripped off, copied, replicated, counterfeited, whatever. There's a difference. I think there's a very distinct difference. So everybody draws inspiration from everything out in the world. Like the world is free for everybody to be inspired to do certain things by. So I'm inspired by a lot of nature. I'm inspired by other creator friends and that sort of thing. So that is inspiration. That's like someone that one of your friends does something that's themed in like example of something that I got into, mushrooms. There are a lot of artists that I know that do things with mushrooms, and I had never made a specific crystal shelf that was shaped like a mushroom. I'd never done that before 2022. And so that was something that I brought out in 2022. I made a few different shelves that are shaped like mushrooms in various sizes, various colors, whatever, and people really liked them. And my inspiration for that was because I noticed a lot of people and a lot of mediums that like sculpture and things like that. They were using a lot of mushrooms in their imagery and in their design inspiration. Painters it's just a thing that people are really into right now, that foresty kind of fairy tale type thing. And that's again why I ended up making some shelves that were shaped like fairies. Not something that seems like it would be much in my wheelhouse, but it is in some ways. So and it wasn't me trying to grab a trend necessarily. It was like, I think I could make something cool like that. Like I've never been a person that's really like into fairy tale folklore type things, but it did kind of draw me more into it in a way. Because I do want to know like what's behind the things that I make, what's behind the designs, the beings, the whatever it is. So it did pull me more into that, and I learned more about that sort of like demographic of people that enjoy that sort of thing. So that's inspiration. Like I'm taking inspiration from people I know that do paintings and sculptures that are mushroom centric, fairy centric, just that sort of otherworldly type thing. But I'm not taking someone's sculpture and just making a wooden version of the sculpture that looks exactly like theirs or looks heavily influenced by theirs. I'm using my own idea of what a mushroom is to create a shelf that looks like a mushroom. I'm not using theirs as a roadmap to do it. I see mushroom, I make a mushroom that looks like my mushroom that doesn't look like your mushroom, and is clearly not a derivative ripoff of it. That's inspiration, and that's how artists work. That's how we function. That's how we evolve. That's how we do stuff. There's nothing at all wrong with that. The replication part of it that's damaging is when you make something that people see and they're like, I can't differentiate between this being a work of this artist or this artist. They're close enough to where I can't tell who made it because the design language of that individual artist has been replicated by someone else. If your designs are more cartoonish and you have a friend or someone that you follow that whatever that creates, like if you make a cartoonish type sculpture, and I'm using sculpture because you sculpt, that's what you do. a cartoonish style sculpture, like a comic strip type, or like a Looney Tunes type cartoon. You make sculptures in that style, and then you have someone who makes sculptures that are more realism, like more accurate, realistic mushrooms, flora, fauna, whatever. If you escape your medium as someone who does super detailed stuff and then start making cartoonish sculptures that are very similar to someone that you communicate with, you talk to, or that you just follow on social media or whatever, I would consider that to be a replication, and you're kind of stepping over a line there. And that's part of the reason why I don't converse with people within my medium, because I never want to be accused of that. And what I mean by that is it's so easy to, especially online, to jump into groups of people that initially have a good idea of, we all do this, we all do sculptures, we all do paintings. So you have a group of like-minded artists that do paintings, you have a group of like-minded artists that do sculptures, you have a like-minded group of artists who do woodworking, and they're all conversing, they're all talking with each other, they're all supporting each other. But what I see happen so often, and it's not always the case, but a lot of time it is that you get people connected that are all in your medium, and all of your stuff gravitates towards looking very similar because you're communicating with people in your medium. And if you need advice of like, I want to learn how to do my art better, then yeah, there is a fine line of like having people that are willing to give you those resources, those tips, those ideas, whatever. But a lot of times what happens is that they kind of become a muse of each other. One person follows a trend or makes something on their own. Like say someone makes a sculpture of something that's completely unique to them and their idea, and it hasn't been, it's probably been done before, but it hasn't been done in their specific style. It hasn't been done in a way that went viral online and people really liked it. But then someone in one of these groups makes a sculpture that, like I said, is within their design language and is something that hasn't necessarily been done before. And then you see other people that you communicate with that are in that same medium start realizing, oh, well, this person made this and it's starting to go viral, so I need to make this too. And then you just have like this echo chamber of people that are all in the same medium, all doing kind of the same thing, and everybody ends up doing the same stuff. And that, I don't think that's healthy for artists to get into that cycle, because it always ends up with some people being upset and hurt by it because someone feels like they're being ripped off, and then there's bad blood in it. And I've seen so many artists and creatives get to that point that they're just in these groups where people are just ripping each other off. And even, I'm not going to give a specific, but you and I have been we don't do the group chat thing at all anymore, but
no, and I went back and forth feeling guilty, like I wasn't part of some artist community that I was being a snob about, but it was always just protecting.
Right.
But I do have relationships, though, with other artists, but it's not work related. It is just friends.
Yes, exactly. So like you and I have been in like groups for like giveaways and stuff on Instagram specifically. And there are even people like, say there's probably 15, 12 people in the group that we were in at one point, and there are people within just that little subset of 15 people that got mad at each other because their work was too similar, and someone pulled inspiration from somebody else, and it was probably not the person who did it first. And that's a tricky thing to do, because then people start picking sides, and it's like, well, this person did it first, that person did it first. It's not worth it. Like, there's so much inspiration and so much that you can do in the world that you don't need to take that step. You don't need to rip anybody off. That's why, like, when I started off doing what I do, I was doing basic wooden geometric shelves. You make them on a saw, you stick them together, you put it back, and I'm like, geometric shapes, hexagons and squares and whatever, printer type boxes that hold all kinds of knickknacks and crystals and rocks and all those sorts of things. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I started off, was doing simple geometric shapes with wood, curio type boxes. And
I have some of those.
I'm
have so glad that I do. All the first stuff.
Yeah, the original stuff, you have a lot of that, and I'm happy that you do. that just shows longevity and like growth. And I love the fact that there are people that have stuff that I made 10 years ago that they still think is relevant to them. But at that point in time, there was another creator out there who was doing stuff that was specifically triangle shaped. And when I started getting, because I've been a lifelong crystal rock collector since I was like 6 years old, so it's nothing foreign to me. The appeal of it was brought more into my conscience by a friend of mine as an adult, and said I think there's an opportunity, to make geometric shapes for holding rocks specifically. And like I said, this is like a decade ago. Like this is a long time ago. I'm not saying that's something super original that no one had ever done before, was making specific boxes for that. But at that point in time, it wasn't something that was really out there. Like it wasn't mainstream. It wasn't like people would just buy old display type things and use them as like antiques, like refinish them, whatever, put their rocks or crystals in them.
Printer drawers, and that kind of thing. And that's what it was. Like you were looking for something that would fit your need. But there wasn't really many people out there that were established in like, I make this stuff for this specific purpose. Like I make dedicated shelving for you to store your rock collections, your crystals, your minerals, and your knickknacks and whatever. Like that wasn't as much of a thing. Like I didn't know of anybody. And there was this other creator that was known specifically for making triangles. And they were super premium. They were super high end. Like they were coming up in like closer to like $200. And I'm like, and I'm not saying like the quality was probably great. I've never held one of this person's things before. The quality is probably great, but is not conducive to my demographic. My demographic that I had kind of been curating with my hexagons and my boxes, and I would never step into triangles because this person did triangles and that's what they were known for, and I wasn't going to step on the toes. So for like 2 whole years, I didn't make anything that was shaped like a triangle because I never wanted to be accused of ripping off this person. I never wanted to be accused of that. So it wasn't until I really thought about it and like processed it, and I'm like, I'm going to make a triangle. I'm going to make something that's shaped like a triangle, but it's not going to look like theirs. It's not going to be super premium. It's going to be like, I don't want to say lower end, but it's going to be lower end. It's going to be something within reach of my demographic, my people that don't have $100 to spend on a shelf. So I started making smaller triangles that were very simple, $27 a piece. Come grab them. And it took off, and that's where I got my start. I still don't think I was ripping off that person because I was already doing geometric stuff, and I wasn't copying their style. I wasn't doing super premium. No one else was doing, like, at that point in time on a mainstream, like, noted level was doing triangle shelves for that specific purpose that I know of. Maybe there was someone out there. I'm not saying I'm the original person. I'm just saying I was the first person to catch a lot of traction with it, that I know of. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, and like if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm okay with the humility of that. I'm just kind of giving my own example of like, people started to know me as the triangle guy because I was making triangles that were in their reach. And now a bunch of other people are doing it. I took offense to that at the beginning in the early stages when I was really getting established because other people were making triangles, and I'm like, no, I can't be pissed off at people for making triangles. Triangles have existed for a very long time. I can't do that. So I started trying to differentiate myself in ways of making the triangles different by doing cutouts in the backs of them. And like I'd put a back on it, and I cut out like a moon design in the background. I cut out a mandala, I cut out a whatever, and that's when I got into CAD work and CNC and all that kind of stuff, and designing stuff and kind of making a thing for myself. And I wanted to separate myself as much as I possibly could from anyone ever saying like, you're just ripping off this person that did it originally. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to make stuff more accessible to people, and I'm trying to expand my own knowledge and my own craft and my design language and all this. I want to be something else. Like I want to be known for something. And then I became known as a triangle guy. And I didn't want to be pigeonholed into being the triangle guy, so I kept trying to build it out and build it out and build it out. And so I created a whole new catalog, and then there was this guy in another state who literally went through my back catalog of my old designs and ripped off everything that I made for like 2 years. Completely ripped off everything that I made, like to the T. Like it was the simple stuff. It was the stick-built stuff. It was the triangles that had specific interiors that looked like what I was doing. It was the hexagons that had moon phases cutouts in the back of it, that had stars cut out in the back. It was like the things that he was making were 100% knockoff, rip-off of what I was doing. And he cared not at all.
No, and Chandra remembers this.
God.
He had no shame. He made a
Ruthless.
series of story posts, called me out, cussed me up and down, saying that I was soft and I wasn't a man, and like the most toxic masculinity type stuff. And the only thing that I did was I told people, I'm like, look, I don't want you going, because I didn't have an Etsy shop anymore at that point. I had already opened my own website, and I had shut down my Etsy shop. I was just giving a warning to people like, hey, there's a shop out there on Etsy that has stuff that looks exactly like mine. It's not mine. It's not authentic. Please don't think you're buying stuff from me. Like, I just don't want someone thinking they bought something of mine that wasn't mine. Like, it was a counterfeit, whatever. It was stuff in my back catalog, stuff I had made. And this guy just went after me hard. But people in my following, I don't like calling out people for doing stuff like that, but that was a completely blatant 100% like knockoff of everything that I had done 2 years prior. And I'm not for calling people out just for doing that. I didn't name him by name or anything like that, but my followers that I had at that time went over there and found that shop, and they completely ripped him up one side and down the other. And it was not what I wanted. It was not what I requested, but this guy went off on me in a tirade in his Instagram stories. Just on and on and on. It lasted for days and days at a time. I actually saved all those videos, so I still have all of them. I don't look back at them, but I wanted them just in case something weird happened. But that's a case of replication. That's you seeing something that's popular, and he was wording it as this is competition. It's like, no, it's not competition. Yeah. If it was competition, you would have a design language, you would have a process, you would have something that was your own, that maybe was adjacent to what I was doing and close to it, but it wouldn't be directly ripping off everything that I had built and everything that I had done. Like, that's knocking off, that's ripping off, that's counterfeiting, that's completely different. And now at this point in time, I don't necessarily, because my design language has changed so much and my processes have changed so much, and I use more technology than I have before, and I've learned how to design things digitally on CAD and everything like that. So I've tried to grow as a creator. I've tried to grow and find a design language that is my own so hard and constantly evolve it and never get stagnant. That's what I try so hard to do.
We do very good at it.
Well, thank you.
By the way.
I try to, like, it's just one of those things, right? It's just, I never want to get stagnant. I never want to just be known as one thing. That's like when people started saying that's the triangle guy. I didn't want to be the triangle guy. I wanted to be me. I wanted to be J. Drew Silvers, and I wanted just to be known for being me, not the triangle guy. But with that, like, it's harder. Like, the stuff that I do now, for the most part, is not stuff that is easily replicated in someone's garage. It requires stuff that's expensive equipment, commercial equipment, not stuff that people have readily available to them. And I did that on purpose because I want to make it as hard to replicate my work as possible. And there was one other maker, because I'm in United States. There was one other maker who came up slightly after me. That's in Europe. I'm not going to name who it is. That was in Europe. And she made stuff that was pretty similar to what I was doing, but I would never say she directly ripped me off. But as far as like someone who's, like I said, adjacent, someone that's like competition, I don't like that word because we're artists, we're not like that. It shouldn't be competition, but the closest, the most adjacent maker that I had to me was someone who was in Europe. And then all of a sudden, like, that was like, people knew me and people knew this person in that world, like, because the methods that we used to make stuff was very similar. We just happened to kind of have the same concept at the same time. I've never spoken to this person, but we were aware of each other 100%. Our followers, we had a lot of crossover with the people who follow me and the people that follow her. But then I found out, like, because that was, like, I guess if you were to say competition, that would be the competition. We weren't ripping each other off, but they were very similar in some ways. And then I noticed that they weren't posting as much on their social media, and it wasn't quite as invested in. And then I found out that they don't exist in the way that I thought they did. As of last summer 2022, they are not owned by the person who created the company. They were purchased by a private investment firm, and now it's a part of a corporation. And this is the kind of a completely different side note, but like, it's just driving my point home about we weren't inspired by each other necessarily. We were just in the same medium. and we weren't replicating each other. It was just, like I said, same medium, similar concept. But the thing about that is, this person who was the most adjacent creator to me doesn't exist in that way. Now they're part of a corporation and they haven't told anybody. I don't like that. Because there are still people that comment on this account's page and say things directly addressing the person who started the company, and the person who started the company is no longer involved in the company. But they don't do anything to dispute that. They don't do anything to refute that. The company that owns it now just lets these comments pop up on their social media like, oh, you did such a great job with this design, blankety blank. Like naming the originator of the company, and the originator of the company has nothing to do with it, but the company that owns it now is not doing anything to say, oh yeah, this person is not with this business anymore.
Okay, so did they take over their social media too?
They took over all of their assets.
Everything.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's a private investment company that buys businesses, and they took over all the social media of this shelf making company. They took over like the Facebook page, the Etsy shop, the actual store, their website that they sell through, the Instagram, the TikTok, all of that became the property of an investment company, and they haven't made anything new in a long time, in a few months. But
being a successful business, and buying these companies, wouldn't you want to be very transparent? Like, hey, we're now running the company.
You would think so, but then I looked up the way the purchasing company operates, and this is my opinion. This is what I've deduced on my own, just from what I've looked into. So I'm not stating it as fact. I'm stating it as what I've seen. This company, if they want to acquire a small business, they go in under NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and they say, you can't tell your employees that we're talking to you about taking over your company. You can't tell your social media followers, because then your brand recognition goes away. So it seems to me like they don't want anybody to know that this company is no longer owned by this woman and the designs are no longer part of this woman. That's
shady.
That's like a corporate.
I don't like it.
Right. That's like a corporate thing. And to this day, as of us recording this, the followers that this company, this small business shelf maker had, don't know that she's not involved anymore.
Weird.
The only way that you know is if you go to their website and scroll all the way to the bottom, and it has a little logo at the very, very bottom of the website that says it's owned now by this company called blank. Not going to say who.
Interesting.
But that's the only thing. That's the only thing that you see. But so. I say that I brought that up because the only direct competition I had from another independent maker is now owned by a corporation, and that person's followers do not know that a corporation owns it. They still think that this original creator designer owns it. The people that rip me off now are all based overseas.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. And they make really horrible copies of my work. They make really terrible replications, and they sell them dirt cheap because they're using really terrible business practices, I'm sure, as far as their labor is concerned. I've bought 2 of these shelves to look at them and see what they look like and see how terrible they are, and they're absolutely horrible. Because I make everything in my shop out of wood. They claim it's wood that they're using, and it's like fiberboard that probably has carcinogenic stuff in it, and
it's like sawdust and resin.
Yeah, it's like sawdust and resin compacted together, and who knows what kind of paint it's painted with, and it's got runs and drips. The quality is terrible, but the bad thing about it is that they use my pictures, because in overseas countries, a lot of them don't have IP, like intellectual property. They don't have copyright law, or if they do have copyright law and IP violation, it's not enforced at all. So they go on like my website or my Instagram or my Facebook or whatever, wherever my pictures exist, and they'll go on there and they'll take pictures, they'll copy them, save them to their computers, whatever, and they'll find a way to make a really crappy replication of my work, and then they'll use my pictures on wholesale sites to market this as this is what this is. And a lot of them have my wife Anne-Marie holding the shelves, and it's my property, like my crystals, my little knickknacks or whatever that are on these shelves. And they have the actual pictures from my website, and they use them to put them on like Alibaba or whatever other wholesale overseas website. And they so the people that are buying them think like, oh, this, if they know of me, then they think, oh, that's where he gets his stuff from. But no, I make all my stuff in a little shop myself, in a little workshop on the north of Atlanta in Georgia, like rural Georgia. Like I have a little shop and that I share with my dad, and I make everything myself. Like I'm involved in every step of the way. I don't have employees. It's just me. So that's what hurts me, is to see these people using my pictures, especially with my wife in them, especially with my property on them. They're my pictures. I own the rights to them. I took the pictures, I made the product, but you're using it as free, as like someone buys stuff, a crappy version, a crappy counterfeit of my work. Someone buys it, and then they are given my pictures to reuse on their sites. And then I find out, and they end up on Amazon, and they end up on eBay, and they end up everywhere. They end up on Etsy, and my actual pictures. And then if I see them, I'll give them a warning first. It's not even like hard, like just be like, hey, just letting you know, these are my pictures. I own them and whatever, they're not yours to take. They belong to me. I'm not even worried necessarily about the product that they're selling, because I know it's garbage. I don't want to be associated with it. I don't want my pictures to be used to market garbage, because that's illegal in the United States, because you're using a picture to sell something that you're not actually selling, because I didn't make it. It's my picture. Therefore, it's illegal. You're not supposed to do that. The materials are not the same as what's shown in the picture. Usually the stuff that they're selling is not the same as the same. It's never the same material that I use, because the material that I use is the wood I use is all based in domestically. It's all American made materials. I don't use crap like that's questionable. You don't know what's in it. Like the stuff I use is as like, I guess, organic friendly, I guess you'd say, as you can be for the type of wood I use. It's processed better environmentally than anything that's made without environmental protection laws overseas or whatever.
It's real wood.
It's real
That's
wood.
the most important. It's real.
It's real wood. But and then these people are making it out of like particle board and flake board and MDF, or just some garbage junk that's, who knows what it is, something that's carcinogenic for all I know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you're confronting these people that literally are innocent, they don't know what they're doing. They're using.
Right.
How are they reacting when you're like, hey, take these pictures down?
Oh, it never goes well. And I approach it gently. Like I don't go in there saying, like trying to like put down the hammer and say, I'm going to sue you and you're doing this. Like, cause I assume they don't know. I assume like a supplier sent them pictures of mine to use, and they don't know any better, because they probably don't. Like they honestly don't know that it's my stuff. But it never goes well, because they get super defensive and they say like, we're just selling the same thing. This isn't your picture and blah, 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 blah. Like you're just trying to stop me from selling the same products you do. I'm like, no, that's literally my backyard. That's literally my wife. That's literally my property on the shelf. And they don't believe it. But the thing is, I keep every single picture I take, and I take every single picture when I do a product picture. I take multiple angles, but I don't use all the angles. So what I do to prove it to them is I'm like, then where did I get these? And I send them the pictures from other angles.
Wow.
To show them like, no, this is mine. And a lot of times they're like, no. Like, you're not, that's not right. You're not right, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't end well. Like every single time it doesn't end well. It's just because they are entitled. They don't like that they were called out on it. Even though I approach it gently, even though I try to do my best to just be like, hey, please don't do this. Like you're affecting me in a negative way. Like this is sell the shit if you want to. Like, but I don't want to be associated with it. I don't want people thinking it's mine, because I do get tagged in stuff from cheap imports that people think is mine, because they're giving it as gifts, and they're like, yeah, I got this from his website, but they bought it for a discount and it's garbage, and they think it's mine. And I'm like, no, if you had mine, you'd know.
How many times have you had to tell people, that's not my shelf? Sorry, you received something else. I don't know, because some people receive it right and like, I gotta change your silver shelf. Oh,
in the past like year, it's probably
to let them down.
Probably a dozen times in the past year, because it's gotten worse. But that's my competition now. I don't have to deal as much in replication anymore, but it's a slippery slope. You gotta know what line not to cross. You're gonna be replicated. You just gotta figure out how far you want to take it. Like, and I'm not all for calling people out like directly and just trying to ruin their life. Like, that's not what I'm about. I'd rather approach it gently and just understand, like, look, there's more inspiration in the world. There's more that you could go after. You don't have to rip my stuff off. You can do your own thing. You can find your own inspiration and your own design language, and you can grow and expand on that and be your own thing and not have to worry about it. But some people don't see it. So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, I love how you talked about all that, because I think some people on the outside, oh, what, you're an artist, you just live the life. What a whimsical, magical job. And it's like, there's other things that happen.
Yeah, there's a
that
lot
aren't
of
all just the creation process and the putting together and the staining. It's like all the stuff on the side. So
yeah, there's a lot. There's always more to the picture than most people see. But I'm happy that you asked me that question. I was able to expand on it. So thank you for that. So.
Yeah, it's good info.
Okay, well, we'll shut this one off right now, and have a great day, everybody.
Bye.